Okay. I'm at the library. I want to thank whoever, oops, is it going to do this right? Okay. 100 to 1 in the stock market. Someone, a reader, recommended this to me, and so I'm going to check this one out. I actually got the first edition. This one's from 1972, not the more recent one. Always like to get the original. And I'm not actually going to talk about this book right now. I'm going to go back to Nicholas Nickleby, and I want to talk about the villain of the piece, Ralph Nickleby. And I actually just I'm 2/3 of the way into the book currently, and Dickens gives a little capsule description of Ralph and how he thinks right now. Now, he's demonstrated it up to this point. What he has to say about Ralph Nickleby at this point accords with what we saw about him earlier. And he has some really interesting things to say about Ralph Nickleby. So, Nickleby basically has two passions running his life. This is straight from Dickens. Avarice. He definitely pursues money, and he's successful at it. He's a moneylender, but he's also involved in various investment schemes. At the beginning of the novel, we are introduced to Ralph other than, a family sketch and how he was as a kid. So the first kind of live introduction we have is this Crumpet Company. It's going to be a public stock company, kind of, and he's basically getting in on the IPO. But the way this is going to be profitable, this Muffin and Crumpet Company or whatever, Hot Muffin and Crumpet Company, I'll have to look up the name. It's these fake companies are very, very amusing in Dickens. He evidently understood business very well. I know he was a journalist for a while, but he must have talked with a lot of businessmen in London while he was working as a journalist early on. Anyway, so the way that company is supposed to work is there's going to be a government monopoly. There are evidently small boys who are out on the street selling, hot muffins, crumpets, or whatever. They probably buy a lot from a baker and then sell for a little meager profit. These boys are not very well treated, and so what does the government do? We're going to outlaw them. Now, so what's going to happen to all these little urchins? Who the hell knows? Because the stock company, we're going to have basically grown men doing it who will get paid more and have neat caps. And of course, the prices are going to be much, much higher for the public. We're going to see some more shenanigans of this type in later books. Trying to remember, Little Dorrit and definitely Martin Chuzzlewit have some very funny, funny to me, business scenes in them. Okay, so Ralph Nickleby does that. He does bills on discount, so he will let tradesmen borrow money off of him, and he does as a bill collector, essentially. So that's another thing he does. So he's very successful at money. What's the second passion? I mentioned there were two passions, and the second passion is hatred. Now, this isn't quite well motivated, but it does get set up from the start. You have Ralph, and then you have Nicholas, his brother, not the nephew, who is the titular character. Evidently, there's no love lost between the brothers, but it doesn't seem... It seems like some kind of envy. But for some reason, Ralph hates the brother and essentially hates his nephew. There is something akin to love with regards to his niece, Kate Nickleby, but maybe, I'm not going to really talk about that later. So he's been driven basically by an innate hatred of humanity, and Dickens talks about that in that he says, Ralph Nickleby did not pretend to be moral, and he says, some of these greedy people and businessmen, make great show pretending that it's not all for the bottom line, for the profit motive, but Ralph never does that. He is out and out. He's pretty dang blatant about his pursuit of money, and no one's fooled, and he's not fooling himself. But the issue is he thinks everybody else is motivated similar to him. They're always out for the main chance. He has no trust in humanity whatsoever. Now, there are glimmerings, and this results in something interesting at the end. I'm not going to tell you right now, but I am warning you, and I think I warned this before. This is a very old book. I am going to mention plot elements that would have been spoilers back when it was published, and let's give 50 years or something. But the point of Dickens books are not the plot twists or surprises anymore, okay? I'm not going to spoil Agatha Christie and murder mysteries for you, but I will spoil Dickens plots for you, even though they were big surprises at the time, because that's not the point, okay? And that's not why I keep rereading these. But you do get a hint. So Ralph Nickleby is a sourpuss. He's not exactly a miser like Ebenezer Scrooge, though that's a, kind of similar character, but Ebenezer Scrooge was a miser, and Ralph Nickleby is not. He spends his money, okay? He has no problem with rich living, but he is all driven about money. It's all about money for him. He has no real relationships outside of money. So that's something to think about. He is the main villain. And I don't think I'll talk about, well, no, I will talk about Wackford Squeers another time. He's the comic villain. So often Dickens has a serious villain and then maybe multiple comic villains. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, talk to y'all later, and I'll be getting started on my new book. So thanks to, I'm sorry, whoever recommended 100 to 1. I'll do a review of that later.